All right, I'm going to show you how to rebalance a portfolio. So let's say I've got 3 different funds that I'm interested in allocating my investments across. So I've got a stock fund, actually let's make that a US stock fund, and then a foreign stock fund, and a bond fund. Now I'm showing this example in Microsoft Excel, but you can easily do this with just a calculator. Let's say that my percentage allocation that I desire is 60% in the stock fund, 30% in the foreign stock fund, and 10% in the bond fund. My computer is being very slow, so hopefully that won't be much of a problem. So I've got a total of $10,000 that I'd like to put across those 3 different funds. So to get Excel to actually perform a calculation, I need to put what they call an operator in the front. So if that's an equal sign or a plus sign or a minus sign, all those count as operators. So I've got 60% or 0.6, and I could create links to cells, but I'm going to type the formula out because y'all will be using a calculator to do these on the test. So basically I look at the percent that I want in the US stock fund, and I take that percent as a decimal, so 60%, and I multiply it by how much money I have total. So let's say I've got $10,000 total that I want to put in that fund. So 10,000 times 60% gives me the 6,000 that I want to put in the US stock fund. The 30% or 0.3 times the 10,000 will tell me how much I want to put in the foreign stock fund, so $3,000. And then 10% or 0.1 times the 10,000 tells me the dollar amount that I want to put in the bond fund. Now I need to also know the price per share of each of those funds. This is something that I would have to provide you, or in real life you would just look up on Morningstar or another quote service. Let's say the bond fund costs $52 a share. I don't know what I just said, but I meant to say the US stock fund. Let's say the foreign stock fund costs $89 a share and the bond fund costs $15 a share or $14 a share. So now I need to figure out how many shares that I'm going to purchase. To calculate that, I take the 6,000 that I want to put in the US stock fund, and I divide it by the price per share, the $52. So I'd buy 115.4 shares of the US stock fund. And as I've mentioned in class before, it is possible to buy a partial share of a fund. For the foreign stock fund, I want to put $3,000 total in that, divide it by the current price of $89, and that will tell you how many shares to purchase of the foreign stock fund. And then for the bond fund, I want to invest $1,000 in that. It costs $14 a share, so divide 1,000 by 14 to get the number of shares you'd buy of the bond fund. So let's say this is what I did at the very beginning of the year, and now some time has passed and it's time to reevaluate things. But I'm gonna relabel this. I'm gonna try to relabel this. Somehow I don't feel like I'm spelling that right, but maybe it is right. This is the initial price per share when I first set up my portfolio, and this is how many shares I initially bought. But now time has passed, and so it's time to reevaluate my situation. So I'm going to call this my current price per share. So maybe it's a year later, maybe it's a year and a half later, but things have changed. So let's say the US stock fund is now trading at, we'll go 82.95, and the foreign stock fund is trading at 96 $9.16, and the bond fund is trading at, let's just say $13.89. I'll have it drop in price a little bit. This would have to be given, so I'm going to highlight that. This would have to be given. These are for the test. In real life, of course, you would have to determine your desired allocation. You'd look up these prices, but these would also have to be given. And then I'd have to tell you here how much money you had. So here I said you had $10,000 total. And then you're solving for how much money to put in each and how many shares to purchase of each. But now let's calculate our ending values in each of those. This should not be yellow because you're going to be calculating this yourself. So to figure out my ending value, what I would do is take how many shares I own of each. So for the U.S. stock fund, I own 115.385 shares. They're now worth $82.95 each. So multiply those two values to get your ending value. So my $6,000 investment in U.S. stocks is now worth $9,571. For foreign stocks, I own 33.7079 shares. Multiply that by the current price per share of $96.16. So my $3,000 investment in that is now worth $3,241. My bond investment, I own 71.4286 shares. Multiply by the $13.89 price per share. So my $1,000 investment in the bonds has dropped to $992. Now I need to add all three of these. Here I'm going to let Excel just do this for me, but basically I want to sum these three numbers. Y'all can easily do that on the calculator. So summing the ending value of each of my three funds gives me an ending value of $13,805. Now at this point there's a couple of things I could do. What I want to do is calculate my ending weight. There are a few different approaches you could use, but I'm just going to pick one. To find my ending weight, I know my total value of my portfolio is this $13,804. I know that the U.S. stock fund makes up $9,571 of that. So if I take the 9571.19 divided by the total of 13,804.7, that will tell me the weight that U.S. stocks are of my portfolio. They're now nearly 70%. I only want them to be 60%. So they're overweighted. I can't believe that I had to sneeze, and I'm sure most people would edit that out, but I'm not gonna. So, sorry about that. I couldn't figure out how to pause the video to let me sneeze. All right. So to find the ending weight of this foreign stock fund, I'm going to take my ending value, the $3,241, and divide that by the total value of 13,804.7. That will calculate my weight in the foreign stock fund. It's 23.48%. I want it to be 40%, so I'm underweighted now in the bond fund. And then for the foreign stock fund. For the bond fund, I'm going to calculate my weight. It's going to be the 992.143 divided by the total of 13,804.7. Again, I could be using Excel to do all of this, and I could just be linking it to different cells, but I'm purposely typing them out so you can see exactly how it's done and use your calculator. So with the bond fund, I'm underweighted as well because I've only got 7.18% in it, and I want 10. So what I'm going to have to do with the stock fund is sell some of my shares. what I'm going to have to do with the foreign stock fund is buy some more shares. And what I'm going to have to do with the bond fund is buy some more shares. But now we need to figure out exactly how much to sell and exactly how much to buy. I'm just going to scoot these over because I'd rather do the calculations right here. So what I'm going to do is calculate the desired dollar amount in each of these funds. I know my desired weight. I know the total value that my portfolio is worth now. So I desired this weight. Things changed and I'm actually at this weight, but I would prefer to be at these weights given that my new portfolio is worth now almost $14,000 and I know my desired weights. I can figure out exactly how much money I should have in each of these. This is how much money I do have, but I want to figure out how much I should have. So what I'm going to do is take the 60% desired weight in US stocks, multiply it by the ending value or total current value of my portfolio, which is 13,804.7. I want to have only 60%, which translates to $8,282, but I have $9,571 in it. So basically I'm going to have to sell or buy. I'll put sell as a negative number, or I'll put it in parentheses. I'll put buy as a positive number. So for the US stocks, I currently have 8,282.82 in it. No, sorry, I said that backwards. I desire to have $8,282 in it, but I have $9,571.19 in it. So take what I want, subtract what I've got. That tells me how much I need to buy or sell. Because it's negative, that means I need to sell, which also meshes with the idea that we were overweight in the US stock fund. For the foreign stock fund, I want to have just 30% of my portfolio in that, so 0.3. Multiply that by the total value right now of my portfolio of 13,804.7. That's how much I want to have in it. This is how much I do have in it. So take what I want to have in it, subtract what I do have in it of the 3241.35. This difference is how much I need to buy or sell. Because it's a positive value, I need to buy, because I want more than I've got. Here I want less than I've got, so it turned out to be a negative value, so I would sell it. For the bond fund, I want 10% of my total of 13,804.7. So I want $1,380 in that fund. I only have $992 in that fund. I'm going to have to buy some. To calculate how much I buy, take what I want in it, the 1380.47, subtract what I have in it, the 992.143. The difference is how much I'm short. Now, when I sum these three values, they should exactly cancel each other out. So the sum of these three numbers should be 0. I'm going to just test that. So I'm going to sum these three numbers, and it is 0. This isn't exactly 0, but that's just due to rounding. I don't actually need this number up there, so I'm going to take it away. So now I'm going to calculate the number of shares to sell or buy. If I'm selling, I'm going to make it a negative number. If I'm buying, it'll be a positive number. To calculate that, you just take the dollar amount that you need to sell or buy and divide by the current price per share. So for the US stock fund, I'm taking the dollar amount that I need to sell. It's negative, so I need to sell it. I'm going to go ahead and make it negative. So 1,288.37. Divide that by the current price per share, which is $82.95. This is how many shares of the US stock fund that I need to sell. For the foreign stock fund, take how the dollar amount I need to buy or sell, the 906, divide by the current price per share of the 96.16. That's how many shares I need to buy. It's a positive number, so I'm a buyer on this one. Then for the bond fund, I take the dollar amount that I need to buy or sell, divide by the current price of the bond fund of $13.89. Again, this is a positive number, so I'm a buyer. Depending on what exactly I ask on the test, this might be your final answer. What I'm going to do next is just show you that this actually works out. This is not going to be part of a test question though. Or I might actually ask you the total number of shares owned. It all depends on exactly what I'm asking you on the test. I'm going to freeze the panes so I can scroll now more to the right, and these panes stay there so you can see exactly what I'm referring to as I add the total or calculate the total number of shares. So actually I have to scroll back a little bit. Originally I bought 115 shares of the US stock fund, but now I've sold 15 of them. So to calculate the total number of shares owned, I'm going to take the amount that I originally purchased, this 115, and I'm going to add how many I bought or sold. Because this is actually a negative number, this 15.53, it's going to subtract it. So I'm going to end up with slightly less than 100 shares. For the foreign stock fund, I originally owned or purchased 34-ish shares. I was underweighted on it by the end of the year or the time period, so I needed to buy some more. I need to buy 9.36 more shares, so add those three numbers together. I now own 43 shares of the foreign stock fund. For the bond fund, I originally bought 71 shares. By the end of the time period, I was underweighted and needed to buy about 28 more. So I'm going to add those. These turned out to be awfully close. That is just coincidence. They do not need to be the same number at all. So now what I want to do is calculate the total amount invested in each of these three funds. Again, I'm just trying to show you that this is actually going to work out. So now I own 99.85 shares of the US stock fund. They are worth $82.95 each. So this is how much I have invested in the total US stock fund now. This is how much I wanted to have invested using my 60% weight. These two numbers do agree. I've got a few pennies rounding error, but I'm not worried about that. For the foreign stock fund, I now own 43 shares. They're trading at $96 each. This is how much I now have invested after I buy an additional 9.3 shares, 4,141. That agrees with how much I wanted to have invested in it given my 30% weight. For the bond fund, I now own 99.39 shares. They're each trading at $13.89. That gives me $1,380 invested in that fund, which agrees with what I wanted to have in it. So I was just here showing that this does work out. If I sum these three numbers, that equals how much my portfolio is worth, 13,805.